So, down in Boca Raton, Florida, a huge downtown development project just slammed into a wall of community opposition. It's a classic story, really. Development versus preservation. And the thing is, it's happening right now, giving us a front row seat to what it actually takes for a community's voice to be heard.
But at its core, this whole thing isn't just about building plans and zoning laws. It's really about what happens when thousands of people stand up together and say, "Whoa, not so fast." So let's dive into how a developer, Terra-Frisbie, and the community of Boca Raton are trying to figure that out.
All right, so here's how it all started. Terra-Frisbie came in with this new vision for the city's government center campus. The idea was, this big, modern transformation. But for a lot of residents, it felt a lot more like an invasion. And the reaction was, well, immediate and pretty intense.
And get this, the phrase that kept popping up to describe the pushback was significant grassroots headwinds. That's not just some corporate jargon, right? It means a powerful, organic opposition that came straight from the residents themselves. And it created this major hurdle for the developers right out of the gate.
So what exactly was everyone so worried about? This wasn't just some vague feeling of opposition. Nope, it was all based on several really deeply felt issues about the future of their downtown. Issues that would soon become these incredibly powerful symbols for the whole movement.
It all kind of started with just one number, 6. Not 6 buildings or 6 new stores, but 6 beloved, absolutely iconic banyan trees. The fear that these local landmarks would be torn down or moved, well, that became a massive rallying cry for the entire community.
But really, the fight over those banyan trees, that was just the tip of the iceberg. Residents felt the plan was just way too dense and didn't have nearly enough green space. They also believed that Memorial Park wasn't getting the respect it deserved as a place to honor veterans. And on top of that, they wanted better recreation facilities. These were the real core issues fueling the opposition.
And that opposition? Well, it had a number of its own. A big one, 5,200. That is how many residents signed petitions demanding a public vote on the entire project. I mean, that's a pretty undeniable message to send to both the city and the developers that, hey, our voices need to be heard. Okay, so this is where the story gets really interesting. Faced with this incredibly organized and passionate opposition, the developers didn't just dig in their heels and push forward. Instead, they actually hit pause. They listened. And then they came back with something completely different.
Now, this wasn't some snap decision. It was the result of a ton of feedback. We're talking more than 30 public meetings. It was a clear effort to actually engage with people, listen to the criticism, and really understand what the community wanted.
And you don't have to take my word for it. Listen to what the developers themselves said. In this joint statement, they gave full credit to the residents' feedback for the changes. They didn't see the input as a roadblock, but as something that actually strengthens a project. That's a huge public nod to the power of that grassroots movement.
Okay, but talk is cheap, right? So the real question is, did the new plan actually deliver? Let's break it down and see how it stacks up against what the community was asking for.
And what's so wild is how directly the new plan addressed every single one of those core issues. They wanted to preserve the banyans? Done. All 6 of them, saved right where they stand. Honor veterans? A brand new, dedicated monument is in the plan. More green space? They actually reduced the overall density to make it happen. This wasn't a compromise. It was a point-by-point answer.
And it didn't even stop there. They added a new world-class community center and city hall, a playground right near those cherished banyan trees, and made major cuts to the number of commercial and residential units. They even promised to work side by side with veterans groups to design the new monument. When you put it all together, these aren't just minor adjustments. This was a complete rethink of what the project was all about.
So this sounds like a total win, right? A real success story. The community spoke up, the developer listened, and everybody won. But, and this is important, this chapter isn't totally closed yet. There is still some pretty critical steps ahead.
So, what's next on the docket? Well, now that the new vision's out there, the next phase kicks off. First up, there are 2 more public workshops scheduled for another round of feedback. After that, the new plan has to go through the whole official city approval process, which means even more chances for the public to weigh in. So if you're in the area, you're going to want to mark your calendars for September 29th and October 6th. These workshops are going to be the first real litmus test to see if this new vision has actually won people over. And that really brings us to the million-dollar question. The developer made some massive changes, no doubt, in a direct response to public pressure. But is it going to be enough to satisfy those 5,200 people who put their names on the line? That is still the big unanswered question. Whether this whole thing becomes a model for collaboration or just another chapter in a long fight, one thing's for sure, the story in Boca Raton is far from over.